Hello, everybody. This is Tom Eckert here. You're listening to my podcast, Numerology, a GPS for the Soul. This is your place to learn about the true power of numerology and how to use it to bring out the best in yourself, understand your loved ones better, take wise decisions, and prepare for your future. In other words, how to live your life aligned with your true destiny. Take your time to educate yourself and share these podcasts with your friends and family so they too can enjoy the great benefits of numerology. Enjoy! Hello there, and welcome to all my listeners to yet another episode. A special one because today we're going to talk about numbers that you don't have in your chart and why they are, in fact, important for you. But before anything else, before I start talking, if you are new here, then welcome to my podcast. In this podcast, we discuss numerology as a path for inner transformation, for spiritual growth, for self-understanding. And I attempt to make numerology accessible and applicable for everyday life matters. And I do my best to provide you with grounded information so that you can apply numerology in order to live your life more consciously, more balanced, more aligned with the true beating purpose of your soul. Now, here are just a few ways you can dive deeper into numerology should you wish to do so. First and foremost, you can book a numerology reading with me. In a numerology reading, you can ask any question that is burning in your life and get precise answers tailored especially to you. You can read more about my readings and contact me through the link in the episode description and book your reading with me. Now, if you wish to study numerology on a deeper level, or perhaps even pursue it as a career, I invite you to check out my 2 numerology study paths. First, check out my self-study numerology courses that give you the rare opportunity to learn numerology online at your own pace, on your mobile device, your tablet, or your laptop. My library currently includes 2 self-study courses, and more are coming up. Or if you want to be initiated into the rare depths of numerology, you can sign up to my complete path of certification where you study directly with me, all the way from a total beginner, if that's where you're at, all the way to a numerology expert. And you get certified as a professional numerologist. To read more about these both study paths, check out the links in the episode description. So, we very often explore the numbers that are most central to our chart. And that makes perfect sense. After all, they are a representation of who we are, our makeup, our destiny, the main themes we'll be grappling with throughout this particular lifetime. But what about all the other numbers? Those that are missing from our chart, the ones that are weak and in deficit. Shall we just ignore them? Are they not important for us in this lifetime? Are we not destined to know them and therefore we shouldn't waste our time exploring them in our lived experience? Well, it's not that simple. In today's episode, I want to explain to you why you should dive deep into your chart and discover what numbers are your weakest link and attempt to practice them from time to time. I want you to see the relevance in getting comfortable with qualities that may seem unnatural to you and why this may actually make your core chart, your core numbers, much more powerful. So let's dive right into it. First of all, it's important to understand that essentially, each of us includes all the numbers within us. Yes, I know it sounds strange, but you and I include all the numbers within us, from 1 to 9. The difference is that some are more in the background, while others in the foreground. Those numbers that are in the foreground become our core chart, our main focus in this incarnation, in this lifetime. Nevertheless, we need all numbers within us in order to live a human life. Numbers, after all, are cosmic building blocks, organs of existence, if you will. And you need all of them in order to exist. Knowing this, we are already making our first step towards realizing that having some knowledge and ability to embody every number is natural and vital to our wholesome life experience. Even if you have no eights whatsoever in your chart, the foreground basically, when you need to pierce through a challenge in life, or when you need to get back on your feet after a blow, you are in fact using your inner eight to do that. You're drawing it from the background to the foreground, even if it's not your immediate foreground. So the first thing we want to realize and understand is that all numbers are alive inside of us. And we want to get comfortable with all of them. Having said that, it's important to mention that your core numbers will always be and remain the main focus of your life. They will grant the deeper sense of meaning and purpose. Now, another important point we must understand is that throughout our soul journey, as we transition between lifetimes, we move in and out of many characters. Each time around, we embody different numbers in order to master the whole spectrum of experience. We often move from one extreme to another in order to master opposites and eventually find the middle path of true wisdom. This means that we've already had many other core numbers in the foreground of our chart, in previously embodied characters that we were. Numbers that today are very central and active in your chart might have been totally passive in a previous lifetime. This is another way to communicate the fact that on some level, you are familiar with all numbers. Naturally, at any given incarnation, in order to stay focused on the lesson at hand, your soul places certain numbers in the foreground and others in the background. If they were all present in the foreground, you wouldn't have been able to learn your lessons, as you would simply be all over the place. But it's also good news, because it means that on some level, you have access to all qualities, even those you think you lack completely. Pardon me. So here you are in this incarnation with your particular core numbers. A special bird you are, indeed. But you still exist in a world with many other special birds. A world that includes all energies, possibilities, and experiences. This life is not a menu in a restaurant where you order what you want and avoid what you dislike. Life throws at us everything. And here, the wisdom of the numbers tells us that we need to be adaptable. This is a universal law. No matter how much you insist, life will force you to come to terms with its ways. It will force you to sometimes step outside your comfort zone and draw on inner resources that include numbers you are less familiar with in this incarnation. Sometimes you'll have to be more compassionate and patient, even though you don't have any twos in your chart. At other times, you'll have to be structured and organized, even though you have no fours whatsoever. Yet at other times, you will need to dig deep in order to resolve a disturbing emotional pain, even though number 7 is nowhere to be found in your chart, and so on. Accessing your weak or missing numbers allows for a more complete embodiment in life, and this is true for all of us. Now, before I keep talking any further, if you're enjoying this podcast episode and you want to keep learning more grounded, applicable, and high quality numerology, make sure to click the follow or subscribe button and turn the notifications bell on the platform you're listening from and become part of my numerology community. Also, make sure to follow me on Substack where I write in depth content about numerology and Dharma. The link is in the podcast episode description. Now, lastly, make sure to check out the comment section and leave a comment. Open a conversation, share your thoughts. It's an opportunity to connect with me directly, and I always attempt to answer all your questions. So let's keep going. So it's not only about embodiment and adaptation to life. It is also about becoming more of ourselves. Now, it might sound counterintuitive, but by partially developing the numbers that are missing or weak in our chart, those that are in the background, so to speak, we in fact make our core numbers, those in the foreground, much stronger and more complete. Having said that, let me be clear though. You're not meant to become the opposite numbers to your current structure. In fact, it isn't possible. You are meant to shine as your current core numbers. However, if you only partially develop the weak or missing numbers, it will actually make your core numbers much stronger. If, for example, your current core numbers are mainly 4 and 6, and you lack the 7 and 9, you might find that practicing some degree of self inquiry and meditation will actually make you much more grounded and connected to the earth, like the 4 and 6 should be, and vice versa. If one is mainly a 7 and 9 in their core numbers, their spirituality will be greatly enhanced if they practice some grounded 4 and 6 energy. The 4 and 6 are not meant to become the 7 and 9, and they won't. And the 7 and 9 are not meant to become the 4 and 6, and they won't as well. But by practicing partially those qualities that don't come natural to them, to us, well, they infuse our chart with complementing elements. And in this example, it makes us into more complete and powerful 4 and 6 or 7 and 9. Now, that being said, don't get too carried away and invest too much time in developing your weak numbers. That will be a distraction and a deviation from the main path of this incarnation. If you are a 4 and 6, that's exactly what you are meant to be and become more of in this lifetime. It's a bit like, a salty dish is meant to be salty, but sometimes just a small amount of sugar will enhance its saltiness and make it richer. That's what you want to aim for, just the right amount, just enough to catapult your core numbers to the next step, the next level. Too much sugar and the salty dish is ruined. You get the point. Basically, I recommend you study your core chart thoroughly, your core numbers, and get to know what numbers are either missing, in deficit, or imbalanced. And then find little moments in life to put them to practice. And really, don't worry because life will bring along many situations for you to practice your weak points. So, we spoke a lot about, your missing numbers or numbers in deficit. So, how do you detect your weak or missing numbers? Well, in all honesty, the best way would be to actually receive an in depth professional numerology reading. But here are a few pointers. Look at the overall composition of your core numbers. Are they more earthly, more ungrounded? Are they more emotional numbers, perhaps more mental? Try to find a theme in your numbers. Again, only if you can. You'll need to study the numbers thoroughly to do that. Now, if you are mostly emotional but lack practical or mental numbers, try to practice those. If you have mostly feminine numbers, try to practice some masculine numbers from time to time and vice versa. Another way is to look for recurring challenge numbers. The challenge numbers are particular numbers located in the period cycles chart. If you have a recurring challenge 6, for example, perhaps you need to practice some self-loving, loving others, balanced giving, some healing of the topic of love. These are two direct ways of finding out what are your weak or missing numbers. But again, there is no substitute for a comprehensive in-depth numerology reading because in such a reading, all your core numbers and numbers in deficit or weakness can be deeply examined for you. So if you can afford it, of course, I would certainly recommend that on top of everything else. But if you can, then try to study the numbers thoroughly and use these 2 pointers that I just gave you. So now that you've been introduced to the more complete and wholesome practice and use of numerology in order to become yourself, I would recommend you go ahead and truly explore your chart. But this time around, you want to know 2 things. What are the numbers in the foreground, right? Your current core numbers in this incarnations. Once you got that figured out, it'll be easy to find out what numbers are in the background. Those that usually we don't give too much attention to because they're simply not part of our experience. And from now on, simply remember that also your missing or weak numbers are your allies and are, in fact, meant to be practiced so you can become more of yourself. And even though to begin with it might seem counterintuitive, in fact, when you just practice those missing numbers sufficiently and you don't overdo it, you do truly become more grounded in your original structure. And before we wrap this up, my friends, if you have enjoyed this episode and want to keep supporting this podcast and keep studying high quality numerology, then make sure to click the follow or subscribe button. Make sure to turn on the notifications bell and become part of this community. Support this work. Also, make sure to follow me on Substack, as I mentioned earlier, where I write in depth content about numerology and Dharma. You can find the link in the podcast episode description. Check out the comment section, leave a comment. I'm happy to answer all of you. Of course, don't forget to check out the professional numerology readings, especially after what you've heard today. And lastly, if you want to study numerology yourself, make sure to check out my self-study numerology courses and in-depth numerology certification studies if you want to acquire deeper mastery of numerology. My friends, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope it gives you food for thought and helps deepen your journey with numerology and your understanding. And as always, I'll see you in the next episodes. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, and you want to go deeper into numerology, check out my website, tom-eckert.com. You can also book a numerology reading or even study numerology yourself through my courses. I'll see you in the next episode.